All right, Patreon Q&A. Once again, if you do support this channel through Patreon or even through the P.O. Box, people send me stuff through P.O. Box as well, or even just watching and sharing the content, I just want to say thank you so much. The channel's been going great, and the support has been such a blessing in all these crazy, uncertain times. Thank you. It makes it a lot easier to turn on the camera as often as I do, and all of that kind of stuff. I wanted to say as well, if you bought or pre-ordered rather the upcoming book that I'm writing, the manuscript is completed, and I had a great conference call with the publisher this week, talking to editors about all that kind of thing. I've read through the book a couple times, and I think you're going to really like it. It's going to be a perfect situation for any of you who, I've got 700 videos online. It's hard to get everything in an organized way because I do everything kind of stream of consciousness. If you've had friends that you want to introduce to my content, and maybe not to get all of the, hardcore, like so-and-so is a snake kind of thing, but if you want in an organized way, what the problems with the social justice movement are and how we can fight back and how the Bible actually answers this stuff in a very straightforward way without overcomplicating things, the book is going to be perfect for you. It talks about Bible verses, it talks about the primary issues with the woke church, and it talks about some of the more troubling statements from people that chances are your friends really look up to. Matt Chandler, Russell Moore, Thabiti Anyabwile, all those kind of people. And so, I think you'll really like it. It's going to be as good as we can possibly make it. We're working together. My publisher seems to have a good head on their shoulders, and we're working to make it as quality of a product as we possibly can. So more info on timeline as we get closer, but know that that's in the works. The manuscript's done. I'm looking forward to showing you all what I've done and all of that. Let's get to the Patreon questions for this month. All right, first question. Here is what he says. Do you think that the internet could lead to a revival parallel to the Protestant Reformation due to our transfer from a mass society to a network society, the same way that the printing press revolutionized the transfer of information? I believe that Christians can take over the internet and revolutionize culture through the supremacy and clearness of Christ's truth. Is this a reasonable expectation or wishful thinking? Here's what I'll say about this. I definitely think that. I think that the internet as a tool, it can be used for evil or good, just like the printing press can be used for evil or good. But because I think God is supremely capable and God is so good and God's people, are seeking to do whatever they can to plunder the Egyptians, we can take things that evil people have made, whether that's the internet, whether that's social media, all that kind of stuff, and we can flip the script on that. I think that the future of a lot of Christian communication is going to be through like encrypted services. I was even saying like, the dark web and stuff like that. That's going to be stuff that Christians are going to have to reclaim, I think, for Christ, because we're going to need some of this private communication type stuff. And we're also going to need to harness things like blockchain, things like being able to communicate off the radar a little bit, and flipping the script for good. I think that we were talking about this last night on Reformgelical about almost like an underground railroad for like a Christian economy almost. So the underground railroad was about saving slaves. We need an economy from a Christian perspective that is kind of off the radar, even as we are connected to each other. We all kind of know each other kind of thing. I think the internet can absolutely spark a reformation and a revival through the means of how we communicate the gospel using it. So yes, I do think that's very possible. I think it's going to take a lot of work. We need a lot more Christian hackers, and I mean white hat hackers, the good guys, ethical hackers, than we have currently. There's a lot of good software engineers out there that are Christians. There's a lot of good tech people that are Christians. We need more. So yes, I do think this is a good expectation to have, but it's going to take work. We got to do the work for it to make it happen. So I don't think it's wishful thinking. Thanks for the comment. I appreciate it, and thanks for the patronage. Here's the next question. He says, hi, AD. Recently, you left several major social media platforms. What was the final straw for you, and when would you recommend others migrate to alternative platforms. Also, what's your opinion on those who want to stay and fight the cultural battles on the major platforms? Yeah, great question. And so the final straw for me was after they had banned Trump. That was pretty much the final straw. But then when I saw them banning like anyone like that was too pro-Trump, like what was it, Rush Limbaugh and that general guy and stuff like that, I just saw the writing on the wall. I was like, look, there's no point at this point for me to continue to build a platform on a platform that when you get too dangerous, they'll just pull the plug kind of thing. Like it just seems like eventually you have to cut your losses. And I'd put a lot of time into building the Twitter platform. I'd put a lot of time into building Facebook. Some people use social media just for fun. I was using it to build a platform for the message that I'm putting out there and stuff like that. And so that's a lot of sunk cost right there that I just had to pull the plug on. I tried to do it to my advantage, and I think it's starting to work a little bit. But everyone needs to make their own decision. I mean, if I just use social media just for fun, I still might have deleted it, but I might have waited a little longer. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So personally, I think that there's really no reason to use social media and Twitter anymore. Like I would recommend everybody leave. But if somebody disagrees and wants to use the platform to their advantage, in other words, they want to use that platform maybe because they think that they're not going to get deleted or canceled, or maybe they're going to try to covertly convert people, or maybe they're trying to drive traffic to their Gab or their whatever. I've got no beef with them. For me, it just wasn't worth the risk anymore, and I just had to cut my losses at some point. I think it's worked to my advantage because I've just disappeared. I didn't make any fanfare about it. I didn't say, I'm going to leave Twitter on this day. Like, none of that. I just left. And one of the reasons I did that is to add a little bit of mystique to the leave kind of thing, so people can go hunting for where did I go kind of thing, and it makes it sort of like a not a private club, but like sort of like a speakeasy sort of. Gab's sort of like a speakeasy, you the password and all that kind of stuff. Not really, but you know what I mean. Like I tried to do it to my advantage as much as I possibly could. So the final straw for me was just when I realized that I could build and build and build, and then the moment I'm actually successful at what I'm trying to build, there's a very good chance that Twitter will just pull the plug because that's what they like to do, and I just wouldn't want any part of it anymore. So I'm happy on Gab. Kind of a side effect that I wasn't expecting is I feel more cheerful than I used to. I think that I was a little bit arrogant to think that the social media, poison wasn't affecting my mind. I think it was. It's hard to try to see through the nonsense constantly. And it's also, it's probably not good for me to like follow certain liberals, like Gospel Coalition people in particular. Even if I don't think I'm not going to be fooled by them, obviously, like it's not a positive thing to constantly be reading their filth constantly. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. I'm trying to figure out why I feel so much more cheerful the last few weeks, but I do. So that's what my opinion is on people who want to stay and fight. More power to them. For me, it just wasn't for me anymore. You know what I mean? That just wasn't for me anymore. So I'm still on YouTube for now until I leave, but I'm not leaving anytime soon as far as I can foresee. Let's continue. Next question. Hi, AD. I've heard you and the cross-politic guys talk about post-millennialism, and I believe John MacArthur believes premillennialism. I've been in church essentially my whole life, and I've never really heard a discussion around the belief and theory of those two terms. I'd like to hear your perspective on it. Yeah. So this is not an area of expertise of mine, but basically what it means is it's attempting to determine where the millennial reign of Christ fits on the timeline of the church history. And that sounds really boring, but for a lot of people, it makes a big difference because a lot of people think that if Christ's return is before the millennium, so Christ returns and then there's the millennial reign, there's a certain way that many of those people interpret Revelation, and it's not a very positive outlook. The way that most people would think, this is the way most people think when I grew up, is that the world's going to hell in a handbasket before Christ returns. So it's going to, like, the culture is going to degrade, and there's going to be more and more paganism and idolatry and sin, and then Christ is going to return and change all that and fix all that. Post-millennials think that the millennium I'm sorry, that the return of Christ comes after the millennium. So, in other words, Christ is reigning right now, and what we're seeing is, the kingdom of God expanding. It's a very positive outlook. Of course, there's fits and starts, and there's going to be problems with certain nations. Nations will rise and fall. Kingdoms will become more Christian and less Christian. But overall, it's becoming more Christian. It looks like kind of like the stock market graph. If you look at the stock market graph, there's ups and downs, right? Some days it's up, some days it's down. Some years it's up, some years it's down. But if you look on a long enough timeline, it's going up, right? The stock market is getting better and better. That's how a lot of post millennials would see the Christianity in the world, the kingdom of God in the world. Yeah, sure. The United States used to be more Christian than it is right now, but on a long enough timeline, if you look at the entire world, it's trending upwards. That's the idea. So I'm a post millennial. I have a very positive outlook on the future. I think that the kingdom of God will expand tremendously. I think there's going to be more Christians than there are sands on the seashore. I think that Christianity is going to be the dominant force in the world before Christ comes. And I think that's how it's going to work. But at the end of the day, I have no beef with premillennial people, just so long as they're engaging in Christianity in every area of their lives. John MacArthur definitely is. You know what I mean? He's a premillennial. I don't agree with him on that, but he lives his life in a state of belief. Like, he believes that God actually is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and there's going to be some disagreements with some of the things, I think, regarding government and stuff like that with John MacArthur. But if you look at the man's life, he believes that Christ is actually going to have an impact on people in the here and now. Like, he's not pessimistic in every area of his life. He's not engaging in unbelief in the ways he interacts with the world and the culture. So I respect that, and I have no problem with that. All right. Hope that helps. There's a lot of good stuff. If you look up David Chilton on postmillennialism, a lot of the Christian Reconstructionist guys have a lot of good stuff to say about Revelation and stuff like that. All right. Next question. He says, not sure if I can get more than one question, so if not, ignore this one. Oh, man. So I won't ignore this. He says, I'm curious if anyone knows the woman narrating the Tim Keller video that John Harris recently posted. I'd love to check out more of her work. I don't know for sure, Michael, but I just assumed it was his wife. I don't know why, but I just assumed that he would have his wife do that. I don't know if it was her or not, but I don't know who it was. So sorry I can't answer you, but glad to give you my take. Okay, last question here from Andrew. Andrew says this: what do you think about what Michael O'Fallon has been tweeting over the last year about the Great Reset? If we are to believe his testimony, there are likely many people in high places of influence, including Big Eva, who have deliberately committed themselves to compromise for some variation of personal gain. Also, his testimony indicates that what we're experiencing is coordinated and intentional, an actual conspiracy. Oh, man, this is a hard question for me to answer because I don't know what Michael knows. But I have spoken with Michael in the past at times, and, he just calls me sometimes and encourages me in my work and stuff like that. But I definitely see his tweets. I definitely see what he says. And here's what I'll say. Everything that's been going on within the halls of Big Eva and without has the appearance of deliberate coordination. I think that there are way more people in leadership in Big Eva that are deliberately compromising themselves for their own personal gain than we'd like to think that there are. And I'm not 100% sure how to decipher between the two, like, because if, either you're deliberately compromising for your own gain or you're just a fool. I think there's a combination of those. There are certain people I have in mind that I think are deliberately deceiving the church. I think Russell Moore is deliberately deceiving the church. I think a guy like Matt Chandler is probably just being foolish about this. I don't think he knows better. I think he really thinks he's doing the right thing and stuff like that. It's hard to explain exactly why I think that about Matt Chandler versus Russell Moore, but that's just the facts. And That's just my opinion, I'll say. It's not the facts. It's just the fact about my opinion. But here's the thing. Like, there's a lot of people where I don't have a strong opinion on it, where I'm like, I'm not sure if you're a bad actor or you're just being foolish. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because the effect is the same. So whether or not you're supporting Black Lives Matter because you're acting foolish or because you have nefarious purposes, you know, you're a part of this great reset thing and all that, regardless of that, supporting Black Lives Matter has negative effects on everybody, including Black lives, by the way. So it doesn't really matter too much to me because I'm going to oppose you regardless of whether or not I think you're being foolish or I think you're being a jerk. But obviously that has a big effect on between you and God, right? Like, if I'm right about Matt Chandler and he's just acting foolish because he, you know, really wants to appear like he's not a racist or whatever, I've got some opinions on why Matt Chandler says the things he says. But whether or not I'm right about that, that doesn't matter in you know, from me to him. It doesn't matter on the horizontal from person to person, but it does matter with him before God. He's going to have to answer to God for that. And if he's being foolish, that's one thing. But if he's being purposely evil in order to survive the Great Reset and not be burnt at the stake, so to speak, you know what I mean? Then that's cowardly, and we know that cowards do not inherit the kingdom of God. We know that people that deny Christ before men, Christ will deny them before the Father. Like, we understand how that works with people who are purposely leading the church astray for their own benefit. So that's between them and God. I could be wrong about Russell Moore. Maybe he's just really foolish. Maybe he's just being used ridiculously. Maybe he's just been duped. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that. I can't see his heart. I've got my opinions and I've got reasons why I think that and whatever. But between him and me, it's the same result. It's the same thing. It has the same impact. It's the same negativity and all that stuff. I'm going to oppose you either way if you're wrong about that kind of stuff. So I don't know, man. It's a great question. I don't think he's telling untruths about this, that there are people in Big Eva that have sold us down the river so that they can survive the Great Reset. I think they're going to live to regret that decision. I think there's a lot of people that are getting red-pilled right now, and there's a mass exodus from Big Eva that is about to happen. It's going to be a joke to bring up, oh, you should read Al Mohler's book about so-and-so. It's going to be a joke to people because people are starting to realize what has happened. They're starting to realize that we've been sold a bill of goods by these guys, and they're all just... let me just calm down before I say something I regret. I'm in a cheerful mood. But yeah, man, Andrew, thanks for the question. That's what I think. I think that Michael O'Fallon has been on point so much, and I appreciate his encouragement in the past and all that kind of stuff. I don't have the information that he has, but I'll tell you right now, the information that he does provide is very intriguing, and it's like, yes, it is an actual conspiracy with a lot of these guys. I don't think there's any question about that. Some of the Big Eva leaders that you've grown to respect and love over time have sold you out. They've sold you out, and I think some of them think they're doing the right thing. They're trying to, pragmatically let the church survive and stuff like that, and some of them are just demons. That's right. Some Big Eva leaders are just demons. Anyway, on that positive note, thank you again for the patronage. I appreciate it. We're going to do the live, what's it called? Google Meet, Google Hangout, whatever they're called anymore. We're going to do it on Wednesday next week. I'm going to get the link out to everyone who is at that level and wanted to participate, and we'll have a good time. So thank you again. God bless you. Have a good weekend. Go to church and sing songs unto the Lord. Take communion. Do whatever it is that you do on the Lord's day. You hang out with your friends, you do your Sunday school, whatever it is. Enjoy God's gathering on Sunday. God bless you. I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.